Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 2. It's called Whitey's on the Moon. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. Always interesting coming out to episode 2 of a new show, especially when we come into it after essentially universally praising the first one.
Yeah.
There's always an interesting kind of hurdle of the second episode, because so many shows that are great shows have the second episode kind of problem. And
I think this has some of them.
It has some of them. What's interesting is I saw a few comments from people who have read the book, which the season's based on, and apparently, like, even in the book, this second story, I don't know if it's a second chapter or how the book split up exactly, but apparently it's kind of notable. The story like gets going more into the full story afterwards, but it's necessary because it's relevant later or something. But
It's interesting that in a lot of ways this feels like a two-part pilot. I almost wouldn't have been opposed to these two episodes having been aired together.
That would have been interesting. I think what's weird about it, from a pacing perspective, is this episode feels much faster than the first one. The first one feels like it spent its time in all the right places, taking its time with the tension and the slow build. And this episode, by contrast, which I still enjoyed quite a bit, it's not as good as the first one by any means.
No.
But it goes so far with the supernatural stuff and like just like outright magic spells happening and like magical barriers and stuff.
Away a little of the mystique.
Yeah, it's just like the mystique's just gone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in the sense that there were several moments in this episode I was getting just kind of like a fun pulpy adventure vibe from the stuff.
It's just different to what the expectations were established last episode.
Yeah. So I wonder, there's a lot more real world stuff last episode. Obviously, that tension's simmering underneath this episode still, but it's not the focus as it was last episode. So I wonder if it's this balancing act we're going to see sort of play in different ways throughout the various stories we get over the season. I think what I do appreciate about this episode is that there was we start off obviously in this mansion that they arrive to, and we'll talk about all the stuff that happens here, but we set up kind of maybe about halfway through the episode that the main guy here, the overlord with his robe, he wants to perform this ceremony, and he believes Tick has got special blood because of his family line that will help him open a pathway to Eden or blah blah blah. We'll get into that, like the actual specifics of that in a minute. But I was worried that I think in a lot of TV shows and a lot of network shows especially, we'd probably be spending 5 episodes in this mansion slowly building to this ceremony finally happening. And I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised at the end of the episode when not only had we already got to the ceremony, the entire building was decimated, and it was like, oh, we're on to new things next time.
Yeah, I was surprised at the pace of how quick this one, especially after the last episode, where I kind of expected this, okay, we're introducing the family bloodline, this cult here, this particular chapter of this cult felt like this could have been the season plot, and then it's just nope, it's not.
I think I'm glad it isn't. I mean, I don't mind it being a factor at all, but I don't think I was into the idea of spending the entire season completely kind of like revolving around the mystery of the house and the family. And
yeah, there's still like the larger cult, because if I'm correct, I can't remember the name of the cult itself, but they mentioned that this particular chapter was the Sons of Adam, I think. But there are there are chapters all across the country, little sub branches of the cult. So there's still presumably going to be a looming threat.
For sure. But I was worried that it was going to be like a season of small things happening in the house to maybe tease that maybe they're getting nefarious intentions. And I think there was kind of a sense of relief when they were shown to being really malicious about halfway through the episode with the visions, and all these rich white assholes are watching through like magic portals, like all these cruel hallucinations that they're being given. But again, I mean, we have to talk about the fact that this episode has just outright absurdly like extreme versions of magic being used, where the first episode, up until the monsters, it's all just very down to earth. It's all just very
real.
Set in the real world, and then the monsters were kind of notable because they weren't that. And it's another thing, because this episode introduces a thing where Letty and George can't remember the monsters, and I was fine with it because it was one of these things where when Letty first said she couldn't remember, I thought, oh wait, is she going to have this weird thing? And then George couldn't remember, and I thought, okay, all right, so they're clearly doing something with this. I was happy with it being a little while before they started remembering things. It was kind of it was played for a good little comedy beat. I laughed quite a bit actually when Tick mentioned that he shot the sheriff, and Letty just goes, "You shot the sheriff?" It's like, I had to shoot the sheriff, and it was just it was just funny little exchanges like that. But I was again pleasantly surprised that halfway through the episode when what's her name, Christina, the mysterious blonde from last week who's now here. She's the daughter who is definitely sticking around. She's definitely a recurring character.
Yes, almost certainly.
Yeah, but she Tick says to her, "Look, if you want to show that I can trust you, that you're not out to get me," which is still kind of up in the air, quite frankly. He says, lift this spell that you've got on the other two.
And it's not like they've cast a spell specifically on them too. It's just automatically on anyone. Well, I think Tick is excluded because of his blood again.
Yeah, he's immune because of the blood. Yeah, that's immediately what I got as well. This is very reminiscent, of course, of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The Gloria Ben spell to forget that they're the same person in season 5. Very same thing.
You know what? Screw you. I'm throwing out. I can go back to the goddamn the Iliad. We'll go all the way back Greek mythology. This is just the mist. Screw you.
Well, I happen to know, because I listened to at least some of the first episode of the official podcast, that one of the writers on the show, who's on that podcast, is a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the hit television show, might I add. So there are definitely influences.
That is not an influence from Buffy. I will not stand for this. Reaching for of the
there
highest
is definitely
order.
Influences. The woman said in her introduction. She gave her name.
I'm not saying that she is not a fan, and that is a general influence on her, tastes and such. But this being a specific, specifically being influenced from Buffy, reaching.
I'm not saying this
reaching, good sir.
I'm
reaching.
not saying this is a specific influence. I'm saying that throughout the show, I've got a feeling that when I start making Buffy references, and oh yes, there will be Buffy references, that some of them might actually be not intentional called backs to it, but just the inspiration is there, and that there's a writer, at least one writer in that writer's room is thinking of Buffy.
I will not stand for this all season. You're cutting this shenanigan out right now.
The quote was that she watches an episode of Buffy season 3 at least once a week. That was the quote. So she's really a big fan of season 3 in particular. So if we get any villains who are really cleansed, really clean freaks and always want to wash their hands and watch little language and stuff, then we know that's her. It's her love of the mayor that's doing that.
Well, okay, I can see where you're coming from there. I can actually see that as a concept fitting in with all the terrible white villainy in this show.
Yeah, it would fit in quite nicely. Let's be honest. So. And the amnesia thing plays up again because they end up encountering more monsters in the woods, which again, this cult, this order of whatever, they have these monsters that attack people in the woods. But then, in case anyone survives, this amnesia means that they'll never remember they saw a monster, and there's no suspicious stuff. It's just kind of a vague thing. Because again, it's another funny moment where immediately after being saved, the women from the Deuce with the whistle, she calls them off, and immediately Letty's like, "Why have I got dirt on my dress? What's going on?" It happened again, didn't it?
It's fun though, because obviously they seem to, while they're there, they seem to remember everything again, because they don't seem surprised by them the second time.
No, they clearly they both know that they're missing time. They both know there's a chunk of time they can't remember.
Right, but when the monsters do show up in the woods, they're not shocked, going, "Oh God, there's monsters! What are these things again?" Yeah. It's like I don't know if all the memories come back, but the vague awareness is definitely there once they're in the vicinity again.
That said, the shock of what happened to them is one of my favourite laughs of the episode, because when Tick says, give them their memories back, lift the spell on them, and there's a pause, and then what's her name? Christina goes, "Done." And I was thinking, oh, she's going to do it, off screen later. And then you just immediately hear Letty screaming from her room because she's just remembering all these horrible monsters, and I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be more horrific than it is funny. Maybe I'm wrong, but I got the impression it was supposed to be oh my God, this is horrifying for them. But
it is. But I did think this moment is intentionally funny. I don't.
I hope so.
This show's not afraid for the humor. There's a moment later on because when they get to like finding the dungeon under this because they suspect that the father's been kept. Montrose, his name is. Has been kept underneath this. It's meant to just be like a holding place for dead animals, but they suspect that there's a dungeon, and they go down. And I actually thought it did like a time change. Like I thought we were getting a flashback when it cut to outside, and we sort of because they find this kind of tunnel that's been dug, right, kind of Shawshank style, and I thought when it cut to like hands coming through the ground and stuff, it was like, oh, this happened like weeks ago or something. This is when he escaped, and they're still going to be looking for him. I actually let out a laugh when he turns around after he gets out of his little tunnel that he's dug, and the three of them are standing there like, oh, hey, Dad. And I actually, it gave me a little chuckle because I was like, oh. He went through all this effort. He dug this tunnel. He spent weeks digging this tunnel with his bare hands. And
they just showed up.
They just showed up. They're just standing there as soon as he gets out. I don't know. That was also a bit chuckle-worthy to me. But, so yeah, big stuff. Obviously, we suspected last episode that George wasn't long for this world. And unfortunately, that was true. It was just the end of the second episode rather than the first one.
Yeah, sad but unsurprising. I think to their credit, as much as okay, we knew since very early in the first episode that this was a very likely outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they still did a really good job with his character enough that it was effective.
He was made very likable throughout these two episodes. He had a lot of layers. I think the moments themselves were because obviously we have this fake out death with Letty, which is pretty shocking. I'm like, wait, they're not killing off her, right? Because, I mean, one, we've already seen illusions this episode. Two, there's magic at play. So I'm not really buying that she's dead.
I was actually very annoyed at this point last night when I was watching, before I watched this, because I didn't get to watch this as it aired. And it was just happened to be scrolling through Twitter. And Journey Smollett, the actress, was live tweeting along with it.
Oh, sure, yes.
And tweeting about this moment.
You have to be very careful with the Twitter now.
Well, I didn't realise the time.
All these actors.
I forgot I followed her. And just there it was. And I was like, okay, lesson learned. Muting Lovecraft Country for 24 hours every time this gets to this time of the week.
I was saying, because my wrestling, which is usually on a Wednesday, Dynamite, was on Saturday night, and I'd forgotten it was on. And I went on Twitter on Saturday, and it was on earlier than usual as well. And I went on Twitter on Saturday night, and there was just like a flood of spoilers. I was like, oh God, no! Phone away! Away with you! Be gone! I cast your evil out!
It's a minefield. It's terrible.
Yes.
So I'm not making that mistake again. But it was this moment about her being shot and her really playing into it and being like, yeah, well, that was the end. Yeah, that was it. It was great working. And I was like, what the hell is going on in this show?
I mean, part of me thought this would be a ballsy death to put here. We're all expecting George to go.
That's what I was thinking when I read this tweet.
Yeah.
When it happened in the episode, I think for me it had an extra layer of, oh my God, I've seen the actress, confirming this, and then I muted it all before obviously the rest happened, and she revealed the truth. Obviously, the episode went on.
I think was kind of well handled for me, even though I don't actually love the idea that there's a fake out death this early on, but I do kind of like the idea of having the fake out death. We see her wake up, the idea being that their magic just does it, and the dude's like, hey, I will heal your uncle as well. I'll heal your uncle when you complete this ritual, as long as you do it willingly and help me with all my thing and blah blah. And I think the tragic moments after everything happens and the building's gone, and clearly a lot of these, the people that are in the room with them all turn to like stone and dust, and Tech's got some powers.
I mean, worth noting that the first time this was tried, the mansion burned down as well.
Yeah, There's some backstory we could get to in a second, but I just wanted to mention the emotion when Tech comes out of the house and he sees Letty and he's happy because this is the first time he's seen her. He saw her in this the portal vision thing waking up. But this is the first time he's seen her in person, and they kind of embrace. And I was almost thinking, oh, maybe she's going to kiss him because of the hallucination earlier. It kind of revealed that she wants to kiss him. Obviously, there's
shocked.
More to it. But they get over. The look tells him that something's not right, and he think he knows really deep down he knows what the look's saying, but he doesn't want to believe it, and he goes over to the car and his dad's holding George, and I thought the performance from Tick and Letty, the Smollett and Majors, as they're, because it just stays on this shot looking out the window of the car, the side window, looking at him, and he's just sort of holding out at the door, crying and blubbering, and it was really effective. I thought it was really well handled. And
the acting's pretty good throughout. I think she tends to stand out a little bit more throughout the episode for me. But this moment here at the end for him is easily his best moment in the episode, and it's up there.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to checking out a movie that he did last year called The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I heard it was good. I like the trailer.
Oh, is that him?
He was in that. Yeah, he's one of the lead actors in that.
I've seen the trailer. I'm familiar with the film, but been a while, over a year ago. I can't remember who it was exactly.
Yeah, I've not seen it yet, but the trailer looked good. So it's one of those things where when I was like, "Oh, what else has he been in? What's he been doing?" And that was one of the main things he's been in. So I was like, "Oh, I kind of want to see that." Yeah. No, I thought the emotion here was handled very well, and because they made us care about him, because he had layers, because we cared about not only him but his daughter, his wife, his relationships with those people, the fact that he's there for Tick.
It sets up layers to his relationship with Tick here.
Oh, of course, yeah, but even the fact that he's there for Tick when his father's not, and then of course the layers you're referring to is, there's an implication here that he may actually be Tick's father.
It's clear that he obviously had some relationship with Tick's mother, which is established kind of early on, actually, because he knows, stuff about this place that he kind of mentions that, his mother, talked about a few things to him, and Tick's like, that's weird. She refused to talk about any of this with me or Dad.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it never really occurred to me as he seemed to have all this intel on her past that she talks about, and obviously the past that comes up here is the fact that her ancestor was this slave who, because there's a great little exchange. It's when the blonde dude showing him around the house, and he's talking about, and showing out the various things, who built the building, and I think it's George who says, "Oh, how did he come about his fortune?" And he says, "Oh, yeah, shipping," and Letty, makes a little dig saying, "Yeah, that's code for slavery," and the guy doesn't refute that statement. He just responds with, "Yeah, he was very generous to everyone he worked for him." Was the sentence? Was it that?
No, I think it was, he was notorious for being very kind to people
yes.
who worked for him, and it was notorious because typically that word does not have good implications.
No,
right?
But even if you take out the word notorious, though, the sentence kind of it's basically saying, he did have slaves, but he was very kind to he was very good to his slaves. So it was very telling, just the way that he didn't even try to defend what she said. It was just, yes, but he was good to them. He was a nice slaver kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a point where at the start of that sentence, you're like, well, okay, he's not denying that. He's not even trying to hide that. He's at least accepted there's some murky family history. But then it gets to the end of the sentence, and you're like, "Oh, okay, never mind. It's just trying to defend it."
I don't think the word history even applies here. I mean, it is history, but I think that the present day family's also got a fair bit.
Yes, but we don't know that at this point of the episode.
Oh yeah, sure, yes. I don't trust him the entire time. He's got a creepy face. And
just look at him. Yeah, he definitely has a look.
But and one of the great visuals of this is when Tick is running through the building. It's like he's being led almost by the ghost of his ancestor, the one who gave birth, and that's which led to him through the family line. Because it's not burning, but he sees burning along with the rubble, because it's more like the house is just kind of falling apart. It's
crumbling. Yeah, it's almost like it would look like in a kind of an extreme earthquake. It's a sort of visual of it.
Yeah. So that stuff's really good. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily. So what I was trying to say though is that the fact that when it's brought up in the hallucination, right? Because it's not his wife he's seeing. Because that was something that really stuck out to me. Is that and in the hallucination that George has, it's not his wife that you see. It's not Hippolyta, is what they say. I'm trying to say it the way they say it, not the way I know it from comics. He does dance with her, and I thought it was pretty notable, despite the fact that he's always seemed like a really upstanding guy who we root for and very likable. There was kind of an interesting little, not an evil thing, but just a little character flaw here, where he doesn't say, "No, I'm a happily married man." He says, "No, this isn't real." But the implication being there that if it was real, he might actually be more tempted. He might actually go along with it, which I think is an interesting little wrinkle. Again,
he's not a perfect man.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. The idea that he was in love with this woman, and it was such a strong relationship that
presumably this is Tick's mother. Yes.
Yeah, that was my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, they don't outright say it.
No.
I mean, they say her name, Dora, I believe it was. But I don't think. I mean, I don't recall hearing Tick's mother's name at any point. It was always just your mother.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think putting all the pieces together, there's not really anyone else it can be.
Now, do you think she's passed away? I don't know if they've said that already, or
they have.
They have said that. I was going to ponder that maybe she's off somewhere exploring.
And no, she's definitely dead. And they even at the start of this hallucination. What?
Dora the Explorer. Oh, there was a joke in there. I was making a crack.
I know. I just really didn't want you to do it. I thought if we just brushed straight past it, it would be fine.
No. I'm taking my points. I'm taking my credit for that one.
Look, sometimes the best tactic when you do these is just power straight through, pretend it doesn't happen, and if I just get through the point quick enough, you don't have the ability to pull the conversation back and feel smug.
Never works.
That time it didn't get far enough. It does sometimes. There is evidence.
So yes, so obviously some of the things we see, like the guy in the house, he's literally getting, like, it's not clear what he's doing or why he's doing it when Tick first sees him in the sort of the weird sort of almost the laboratory with the Tesla coils and all that stuff, but there was a dude cutting into him, and it's like, what's going on here? And he talks, it's some fluff about Adam and paradise and Eve ruining everything and whatever. But that's one of the interesting dynamics that's kind of brought up here, is that his daughter is really miffed when she's giving Tick this ring that goes to all the family line and the members. And it's like, oh, I've worked my whole life trying to get one of these, but I'll never get one. But you get one because you just happen to be more than a man. So it's interesting they're bringing in a little bit of sexism in here as well. Yes.
Very strong misogyny along with the racism.
Yeah, I mean, they often do go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think we actually touched on it a little bit in the first episode with Letty's stuff, but obviously it was a lot more at the forefront here.
Yeah. So interesting stuff to sort of start seeing in there. But basically, after the hallucinations, we should probably talk about those other two hallucinations, because I mean, Tick's one's very specific and seems to. His experience in the wars brought up a couple of times here. They're even worried early on that maybe he's like a bit shell shocked about.
Yeah,
stuff.
He doesn't seem to be most of the time.
No.
But the experience has obviously affected him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he did at least have to kill someone in a questionable way that he's having nightmares about, that he's not proud of. This fight with this woman who I believe is credited here high up enough that I do think that Jamie Chung, who plays the character, is going to appear again. Whether that's going to be because she shows up in present day. Well,
we obviously know we had the phone call.
The phone call, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I think, a woman's voice on the other end.
Yeah, it was.
If I recall. So, yeah. I mean, it stands to reason there's some, connection going on here.
Yeah, so obviously there's some backstory here to dig into, and we're being teased that I don't really have any sort of great insight. Letty's hallucination, which starts off as just being, because I actually liked how it did this, where you think, because even though we saw Atticus trying to leave his room, and there's like which honestly is not a million. I'm not doing this intentionally, but it's not a million miles away of the effect in Buffy when the vampires would try to go in a house they weren't invited to. It was very similar.
Kind of is, actually. I'll give you that one. I will give you.
Yeah, very similar. But we see Tick come out of her room, and she's just remembered everything, so she's a little bit frazzled, and he's like, oh, I'm here for you, but I'm not going to abandon you. She's getting very emotional, and they start to kiss. And it does this great thing when they're making it out in the bed, where the camera goes out, and it's really notable because the stained glass window has what I think is Adam putting a fish up Eve's crotch. It was something to that.
I'm not entirely sure. I'll take your word for that.
Well, it was
very specific.
It was a naked man and a woman, and the man had a fish, and it was going. Okay. I don't know.
Are you sure it was a fish and not a snake?
It definitely looked like a fish the two times I saw it, but I mean, stained glass art's not like super realistic, so it wouldn't be a stretch to think that maybe it was some kind of snake.
Both can be kind of scaly.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Still, though, I don't remember ever the story of Eden involving Adam shoving the snake up her Yahoo.
Not literally, no, but there is obviously the snake is a large part of that story.
Yes, but I don't recall sexual assault with said snake being a thing. No,
there is, not with the snake specifically, but there is some subtext of the sexual relationship between them, and also the snake kind of ruining things, so to speak. So there is,
Well, I know the snake ruins things. I mean, I've never read any of this crap, obviously, but
obviously this is taken in a very literal, artistic impression of it. But there is reads of that story there where I could see how an artist would come to that interpretation.
Anyway,
or at least to visualize it that way.
Anyway, the camera comes out and it goes round to Tick's room, and we see him, being attacked in this fight. So it's like, oh wait, this is the real Tick here. So what Letty's seeing is a vision. It's just not real. And when we go back, it does this thing. And I mean, the snake in the stained glass would make sense given where this scene goes, because Tick's taking off his clothes, and Letty's like, hey, let's slow down. Let's not do this. No, stop. And he insists on taking his pants off. And instead of
just for a second, you think you're getting the full frontal, and it's HBO. It wouldn't be the first time.
No, but it's a snake instead.
Yeah. I think if there is anything else that this show leaves you with, just imagery of, snake dick's going to be up there.
It's pretty up there. I will say this: there's a lot more visual effects in this episode, and they're not all like 10 out of 10. Like, there's definitely, you can see it looking like an effect, but they're also much better than TV effects typically as well.
They are. There's a few that stood out as weaker than others. The house crumbling in general.
Yeah.
I actually thought the camera going out through the stained glass and spinning around the house looked a bit ropey.
Bit showy, yeah.
But other stuff looked pretty good. So, like I thought the snake itself looked kind of solid.
Yeah, I think it's interesting leaving us off in this new dynamic with Montrose with Tick's father being there with them now instead of George, and I wonder if we're going to feel similar to the characters where we miss George and he feels like this kind of more confrontational, less sympathetic character. Given from what we've heard and how he speaks to Tick in this episode already.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what the driving force of the plot is, because now it's for the first episode was find the father, and now. What's the driving reason for everything to happen next? Do they take a more proactive role here? Do they just are they hunting down other chapters of this cult? Perhaps I don't know.
Maybe I didn't watch the next time on, but there is a next time on after the credits, and I saw it the first 3 seconds just because I let the credits play and I forgot it was there, so I turned it off because I didn't want to watch it. But the opening shot was a group of kids playing with a Ouija board, so I mean we'll see. We'll see how that goes, but there's a little tease. Anyway, so I wanted to go back and talk about the dinner party scene, if you will. Letty's not allowed; it's men only. Again, bringing in the misogyny into it as well.
A black tie event.
Black tie event, yes. And at first I thought they were giving our two characters their own little table because they were black, but they actually had a lot of little 2-seater tables like around a circle.
Yeah, I don't think that was actually a racist thing. For as much as that is the answer to a lot of things in this show.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The second they walk in the room, it's clear every single white dude in there is uncomfortable and wants them gone. Like there's no question.
But the seating arrangement was not unique to them.
No. And basically, there's this sort of power play moment where George, through reading all of the books...
Yeah, he kind of stumbled into a secret room.
Yeah. About the rules, and because because Tick's a blood descendant, he actually outranks basically everyone in there.
Yeah, and it's like, you all have to follow any command he gives.
Yeah, so he tells them what to leave.
I actually realized this point of the scene here, because, he just kind of gets up and starts going off one, and Tick looks embarrassed, uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, just shut up. Let's just sit down and get through this, and we can go. But, George just kind of goes off on one. And by the end, when he kind of gets to this point, and Tick realizes, oh, this is what he's saying. I've got power. It's kind of fun, that shift in his personal reaction over this scene.
Yeah, and it's a sign of George. I mean, he's already given his reasons to think he's a brave man, but this felt like kind of a brave move, like standing up in this room and monologuing in front of these people who clearly don't want him to be there. So again, it's just another reason to be upset that he's no longer with us, come the end of the episode. And then, of course, I did kind of like that the villain here. He kind of says, like, look, you're useful, but don't mistake useful for being, indispensable. Because he says that, I'm really into this. Like, I believe in our traditions, but I'm not devout to them. Which, if I have a critique of that line, it's that you did let part of your body get cut up so that you could feed everyone part of your, I think it was his kidney. They were given all...
Yeah, I think it was a kidney.
Because they all get bits of kidney in their plate because it's, Adam fed some of himself to Eve or some bollocks. I don't know what the part of the story was. And Tick's just like, don't eat that. I saw that being prepared. Don't eat it.
Yeah. He made the right choice there.
And everyone leaves and doesn't even eat any. So
yeah, what a waste of a kidney.
I know. He cut up his kidney and didn't even need to think any of it. So, hey. But I wanted to mention that scene because it really stuck out as a notable thing.
That was a good scene.
And there was some fun stuff at the start of the montage when they're in the rooms, kind of like, I mean, not so much Tick, but the other two, because they're not mortified by the memories of the monsters, obviously. There's like a montage of her trying on dresses, George is seeing all the books and being like, oh, this is great.
I agree. I really love this scene, this montage, because of of how Tick was absent. Because I kind of noticed halfway through that we're cutting between these two back and forth, and I'm like, it's not showing Tick. He's not feeling this.
Yeah.
And it was really effective.
Yeah, it feels something's off about it, even though it's fun to watch. And they even put question afterwards. Tick's like, wait, so you tried on all these clothes and they all fit perfectly, and all your favorite books are in a room, George?
Yeah, very convenient.
Yeah, more of this magic stuff that obviously is going on here. So. Yeah,
I think
interesting.
That's where, just in terms of how I feel about the episode overall, just some of the problems. Obviously, we mentioned that there are some. Obviously, there's a lot to like. We've just spent, however long.
There's tons to like. It's still a lot to love in this episode, and this makes me confident that even if this is the baseline now, that I'm going to have a lot of fun with this season.
I agree. But we are here to critique as well, not just praise everything. And I think it does have a bit of a pacing issue, I think, in this episode. I think, it goes so fast, especially the back half, just rapid fire through event after event. And that's really compelling. But the first half, I felt a lot of exposition mythology dump. And it's possible that was just an episode 2 problem where we just need to do this, get it out of the way. But I was feeling it, especially towards the middle of the episode before it picked up. And I was just like, okay, there's a lot of just... this very white dude lecturing us about the history going on here. I'm really starting to feel it.
Yeah.
So, hopefully that won't be a problem going forward, because it does feel like a very specific to this point of the plot. That as a problem.
Yeah, I see. I think this order, the larger scale of it, is something that's going to be very important for the overall season, and a lot of this is probably vital information that we had to get through. So it's maybe a testament that the episode's as entertaining as it is, despite the fact that it has arguably some network TV level of exposition at points. But, monsters are still fun, and I think I think the most important thing, though, is the characters are still very, very likable and relatable and engaging to watch. I want to see Letty and Tick, run away from monsters, both literal and figurative. Like,
yes, they're just such well-formed characters already, with a lot of layers already, that it feels just so effective. I think that's the show's greatest strength so far. It's not the monsters, that's fun, and we'll get to more of that fun stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure, but just the actual core characters being so strong straight out the gate, it makes it really easy to attach onto whatever they choose to do with them. Yeah.
Are we going to get heartbreaking scenes next episode of George's family finding out? Is that something we're going to be doing?
Almost certainly. I think it's something that's it's an inevitability.
Yeah. It's probably going to hurt, but here we are. And we should mention the Whitey's on the Moon. The title comes from the song, the right word, that plays over the ritual.
Yeah, it's a spoken word poem set to music. I think song. Yeah.
No, because they did this last episode, of course, with the speech. So I wonder if this is going to be a running thing throughout the season, where each episode has one piece of media that plays sort of poignantly over something. No, I almost said ironic. It wasn't ironic in the first episode. Here it's a little bit more in your face, I guess, as opposed to the first episode.
Yeah.
But
and
it was effective.
They do a kind of a similar thing with the song choices for the end credits. kind of notable black artists, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's kind of especially from the time period as well. That said, there was what really stuck out to me, a Marilyn Manson song in here.
Oh, I noticed that too. Yeah.
I don't know what the song was. I'm not a huge Marilyn Manson fan. I don't listen to all of it, but he has a very distinctive voice. And as soon as he started singing, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that what this is very different to what it had established up to that point.
I wish I could remember what scene it played in, because I might be I'd maybe speculate as to why they chose that song for that scene, but I don't remember exactly.
I feel like it was something actiony, but I'm not entirely certain.
It sounds right, but
yeah,
I can't remember.
But I definitely remember it being there and thinking, well, that felt kind of a different choice.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that even in a weaker episode than episode 1, we have still happily sat here for 35 minutes, and 90% of this was praise. So
yeah,
we're in a very good place going forward with Lovecraft Country. So hopefully you guys are all enjoying it as well. Please do let us know in the comments below. Please do like as well. Liking is super important on YouTube. It helps us find new audience members and is a nice free way to support us. You can also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. You can also get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any Cthulhu?